Greetings, friends! Our time at Polyface Farms continues. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Polyface, it is a farm located in the Shenandoah Valley, Virginia. And it is owned and operated by Joel Salatin and his family. And at this farm, it's everything you envision a family farm to be and more. It is teeming with life and animals being able to express their natural characteristics. In our last video, I had the opportunity to join alongside their stewards in taking care of some of their broiler chickens. And one of the stewards looked like my brother from another mother, Daniel. But after those chores, we headed back down to Joel's house.
And back down at Joel and Teresa's house, we got to spend some quality time with them, sitting and having breakfast and eating together. Isn't that where you learn a lot about each other, whenever you can sit and, as Joel says, break bread with one another, just to be able to hear, different stories from their childhood and how they've grown up, and then how they are, where they are right now. It was just so nice to connect on that level.
It was really neat to just sit down and have breakfast together with him and his wife Teresa, and to see him and talk to him in person. He's everything you see on camera and more. He really has a really genuine, loving personality, and there's this constant information coming out of him. It just was really neat. And it was also really neat to hear his story about how his family, when he was just a young boy, about Micah's age, how they had to leave Venezuela because of a conflict that was going on here, and his family had to leave everything. They had started a farm there and everything, but they moved up here when his dad was in his 40s and started up the farm in Virginia. From scratch. From scratch.
Like, that's a really hard thing to do. And it's so inspiring that his dad started again over from scratch, middle-aged, and it was just super inspiring.
So after we had breakfast with Joel and Teresa, Joel took us up the mountain to show us his pig operation.
This is a six paddock pig pasture. So we're in the first paddock where they were, and they've moved successively through. So it's interesting, you can almost do like a time warp, So this is now, they've vacated here, 5 weeks ago. Okay. So this is 5 weeks of regrowth, and then you can go to the next, and then where they are. So the point is that this looked just like where they are, a month ago. Okay. And so by moving them around, so we can walk. What we can do is we can walk through the succession. We'll end up with the pigs. So here you can see less growth back. All right, and then you can see here even less growth back. Here, less growth back, and then we can go over to where they are. So when here you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's six paddocks. We leave them in between 5 to 12 days, and we use a 2-ton feeder for the half acre, and every time they empty that feeder, they move to the next paddock. That keeps us honest, so that as the pigs grow and they eat faster, they move faster. So the point is that 50 100-pound pigs for 12 days is the same impaction as 50 200-pound pigs for 6 days. Okay. And so the idea is to have, and the reason for that is critical, because if you over impact it, you get nothing but weeds. If you under impact it, then it all goes back to brambles and briars and forest. And so there's a sweet spot of disturbance that moves it towards succession as opposed to away from succession.
Throughout their growth, how often are you checking on them to make sure that they're not overgrazing or undergrazing?
Well, we check on them every day.
Okay.
Just to make sure they've got water and everybody's in and all that stuff. But these paddocks, they actually change season to season based on, was it wet when they were in there, was it dry when they were in there, were they in there in May or June or July? And so actually if we start with paddock 1, Then the next time they come in, we might start with paddock 2 to offset, you know, so you have the fast rotation, and then you have this real long rotation, you know, from you know, with year to year. We touch these 3 times a year. So 3 times a year they can go through. And again, if we start in, you know, in early May this year, we won't come to that one until, say, early June next year. And we might stay longer, but we won't come as early, you know, so you fluctuate your movement through. And about every 7 years, we have to come in and prune because the trees, the canopies spread, and then they put too much shade, and then you don't get anything, you know, you don't get any growth underneath. And so, you know, if you want this kind of growth underneath, you know, as you look at this, if you want this kind of growth underneath, you can't have too thick a canopy, or you just don't get enough sun to the, you know, to the floor. So about every 7 years, we come in and we prune and we take out, you know, crooked, diseased, dead, junky trees, and leave just, you know, nice straight trees to upgrade the, you know, the trees that are in the system, and you know, and kind of reopen it in the system.
So you leave enough trees for shade,
Yeah.
and all, but not to shade out too
That's
much.
correct. That's correct. Yep.
And at the same time that you're producing the meat here from the pigs, you're also managing and working on the area, the environment, together with the pigs.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So the pigs are part of our equipment inventory.
Here we go.
Hi, Piggles. Hi, Piggles. How are you? How are you, Piggles? Are you doing good? Yeah. So these pigs, you know, interestingly, they get more and more gentle. Whoops.
Sorry.
They get more and more gentle the bigger they get, because we actually build a relationship with them. And they learn, of course, to trust us. They don't view us as enemies. They view us as, you know, as caretakers, as friends. And so it kind of creates a different relationship with them. But yeah, they've been in this paddock, so they just came from that paddock up there, and now they're in this paddock. And so this is the final paddock before they go back into the one they started with, you know, 6 weeks ago.
And what breed is this?
Well, these are Yorkshires.
Okay.
I thought there was a red one in here, but maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah, this might be a different group. We have a bunch of these groups. We have about 12 of these pastures. So there's different groups with different kinds of pigs. We're not breed specific. We are phenotype specific. So we don't want Arnold Schwarzenegger piggies. we want pigs that have a more torpedo body, like that one right there. That's probably got a little bit of, that's not, you see some spots and some color in there. He's probably got a little bit of Duroc in him or something, but that's the phenotype we're looking for. Not quite so blocky.
Okay.
And it slopes off in the rear, slopes off in the front, and it's got a nice straight, you know, and the gait is real nice. A lot of these pigs that they, you know, show for sale, the market hogs today, they look like a square box, and they actually walk real arthritically, and they just don't do well in this case, in this kind of environment, because they've got to move around so much, and it hurts to walk. So we need a pig with a we say we like state of the art 1950s genetics.
Here we go.
Yeah, isn't that right, pig? Yeah.
And with those types of genes, that makes them more suitable for working the environment properly.
Yes, that's right.
Properly.
That's right. Yeah, they can put on some fat, and they have a good gait. I mean, these pigs, when we go to slaughter with them, we literally just out and drive them down the road. They just go down the road. They actually walk faster than a cow.
Wow.
A pig walks faster than a cow, so they have no problem walking, and they're physically fit because they've been out here exercising. You know, the thing to remember is exercise is what makes muscle tissue juicy. So you know, if you think about, for example, on a chicken, the breast meat is tender but dry. The loin, the drumstick, is tougher but moist, right? A cow, you know, the tenderloin, or a pig, tenderloin's a little bit dry, but it's real tender. But the moisture is in the shoulder, you know, the Boston butt. The cow, it's in the chuck roast, all right? That's what's moist. And so succulence requires exercise. That's what moistens the muscle. In fact, my father-in-law used to, you know, raise pigs like everybody around here back many years ago. And all the old timers built their piggeries with a 24-inch high threshold, making the pigs have to jump up in there, and that jumping up in there to get food exercised their hams and made their hams more moist, and that made them more succulent. So a lot of the difference in quality here is not just being able to eat grass and not inhaling fecal particulate all the time. It's also actually getting the exercise that creates more succulence in the meat, and that also makes it more dense. We've done displacement tests with our meat compared to, you know, what comes out of the factory farms, and our meat is heavier per square inch, which indicates muscle tone, density, as opposed to flab. You know, when the industry said pork the other white meat, it just said pork the other white, cardboard, tasteless, flabby, you know, tasteless junk meat. So our pork is actually rose colored because of the green material and the carotenes in the in what they're eating. Yeah. So we don't do this to save feed. The point is, we're not saving any feed here because we're burning up feed in calories, in activity, okay? But what this does is that it makes a completely different polyunsaturated, saturated fat, profile. It makes a whole different taste profile, different texture profile, different nutrient profile. And when I talk about taste around the pigs, it always is humbling to realize that if I went in here and lay down for an hour, they would eat me. They are omnivores. That's why the mafia has pig farms, you know.
So don't go lay down in there, Micah. You're not gonna lay in there, are you?
When kids come, they want to come in and pet the pigs. I say, sure, come in and pet the pigs, but keep moving. Yeah. Keep moving. You want them to know that you're alive. Yeah, right?
You hear that, Selah?
Yep.
So I see you just have one strand of wire here. Does that do a good job with keeping them in for the most part?
It does. So that's a great question, Mike. So here's the thing. Everybody knows that of all the farm livestock, the smartest one is the pig. The pigs are known to be the most intelligent, but they have a problem. They're intelligent, but they have the poorest eyesight. They don't see very well, and so where people fail with pigs and electric fence is failure to keep it visible. So if you notice, we've weed-eated. We do a lot of maintenance here to weed eat these fences so that they're highly visible. The pig's center of gravity is low, their eyes are low, their nose is low, so the wire doesn't have to be very high, but it does need to be visible and it needs to be tight. So the mistake people make, or the keys to running with electric fence, A, it's got to be visible. B, it's got to be tight, so they can't just come up and kind of push against it for a while before they get a shock. You want it tight, and you want a hot enough spark. We try to run at least 3,000 volts in these wires. You want a hot enough spark to turn them, and so yeah, it's like everything. There's a lot of ways you can mess up something. Yeah. So that's true. Now, another thing I want you to notice here is this set of wooden gates between paddocks. So the pigs, again, they're so intelligent that they don't trust us. Pigs are the hardest animal to get to trust you because they are so smart, and they don't because they're so smart, they you know, we open electric fence gate, say, come on through, pigs, and they're sitting there trying to, this is not a negotiation I think that's good for me. I'm not sure I want to go through here. And so the pigs are the hardest to get to trust you to you know, come through the electric fence. So we use wooden gates. We have wooden access to all these paddocks. So if we want to move them, we can open up the wooden, and there's no stigma about coming through the wooden gates. They've been rubbing on them and, you know, playing with them all the time. And so they don't mind at all, you know, going through the wooden gate. As I say, the wooden gates save your emotions and your religion. Because when you say move pigs, everybody's got moving pig stories. Everybody's got moving pig stories. I mean, their center of gravity is so low that we look like a bunch of traffic cones to them, and their eyesight's not very good. So they come up to us, you know, they got 300 pounds that's below your kneecaps. Yeah. Well, man, let me tell you. Look at that pig responding to me. So
that could be some busted kneecaps right there.
Yeah. So the point is that you've got to think, when you're thinking like a pig, you've got to think everything from like 14 inches and down. So that's why they use sort boards and, you know, all that sort of stuff.
Now, what advice would you give someone who is maybe considering raising a pig, not necessarily for meat, but maybe for land management? Mm-hmm. Do you think that would be a good idea to raise pigs for that?
Well, when you talk about clearing land, let's say you've got a bunch of briars or brambles or whatever, and you're looking at that. One of the beauties of a pig versus a goat is that they're a lot easier to keep in. Obviously, that fence would never keep a goat in.
They just step over it.
They would step over it. They just wouldn't even think about that, would they? The advantage of a goat over a pig is that they do reach up a lot higher. You know, they'll actually reach up and bend stuff over and eat it. So, you know, with the pigs, if it's not within 24 inches, it doesn't exist to the pig. And so, you know, the two land upgrade animals are the goat and the pig. And I think that's a lot is a matter of personal preference and desire. The goat, you know, takes a lot more wire, and they eat higher. A pig will actually root brambles and you know, plants. It'll actually root them out of a place. So they'll actually, whereas a goat won't disturb the land to actually stimulate, you know, new vegetation. A pig will. I mean, we never planted, this was deep forest. This was deep woods. We just started cutting the trees back. I opened it up, and all of this forage that's in here came it was just in the seed bank. You know, seeds are amazing. They'll sit there for hundreds of years before they germinate. And you talk about wisdom, I often kind of get mystical about the wisdom of a seed that every spring says, I'm not going to germinate this year. I'm not going to germinate this year. And this goes on every year for 100 years, 200 years. And then something happens year 283, and the seed says, I think I'll germinate this year. You know, I mean, that's real wisdom, isn't it?
It is.
That's real wisdom.
That's real.
And so that's what's happening here. We never planted a seed, but we just cleaned the trees off, and the disturbance of the pigs disturbed the soil to allow these seeds to say, oh, there's a new sheriff in town, you know, we can come out now. And that's how these pastures have been established. So there's a lot of latent seed bank, but it's real important to do this, to not over disturb and also to not under disturb.
So looking at the work that they've done in here so far, how much longer would these pigs stay in this particular
these guys are just about done.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And of course we've had a lot of rain. If we were dry, like we often are this time of year, if we were dry, they wouldn't be doing any rooting. But because we've had 3 weeks of 3 inches of rain, they're doing extra amount of disturbance. So you can actually go back and kind of see the weather record based on like what the paddocks are going to look like next spring. Oh, okay, I remember, yeah, it was wet in here, it was dry in here. I mean, you can actually see it's very responsive. The land is very responsive And the pigs are very responsive to 24-hour weather, cycles, depending on what's going on.
Just watching them here, and then we raise goats. I'm almost thinking you could almost work them together, like bring in the pigs and then the goats to get things up higher.
Yeah, we've certainly run cows, sheep behind the pigs, along with them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you absolutely could. You could do all sorts of leader follower. We've tried chickens, but we're so far away, the predators just eat you alive. We tried some bannies, roost up in the trees. Well, they roosted up in the trees, but they went to other trees, a mile away. And we couldn't keep them here. So what we have seen a lot in these pig pastures is wild turkeys.
Okay.
Wild turkeys are drawn because the pigs pass some grain, they pass some stuff, and the wild turkeys love to eat that. So we're actually attracting a lot of wildlife in these pig silvopastures, attracting a lot of wildlife that didn't used to be here as a result of this scheme, which, that's not bad either.
No.
Especially in hunting season.
And speaking of it attracting more wildlife, some people have the issue with raising animals.
Right.
But you're raising these animals here, attracting more life. That's just benefiting the ecosystem as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. There's this idea that you can't do commercial farming without damaging wild. The two can't coexist. And our experience with these kinds of systems is that it actually stimulates the local wildlife, including pollinators. I mean, not only deer and turkeys, but pollinators and the whole litany of things, because it creates this mosaic ecosystem. You're not just all grass or all trees or all water. It's a mosaic, and most life critters, they want a little bit of both. They want a little bit of water, a little bit of open, a little bit of forest, and so edge effect always stimulates diversity of flora and fauna, and that's exactly what this is. That's what this does.
So it reminds me of a lesson that I've learned the past few years, that we're to give, but as you're giving with working with the land and the pigs, everyone working together in unison, it's just a give-give relationship that is beneficial to all life.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. When you start looking at abundance, this is all about abundance and not scarcity. And when you start serving this ecological womb, so many times people think, well, our nature is this reluctant partner that we've got to, I got to make you do, and I'm going to get you in it's a wrestling match. When actually nature is a benevolent lover that just wants to be caressed in the right places.
Yeah.
And it's a real different way of looking at things. And so, one of my favorite things that happened here once, I had a chef come up. He was a young chef, and he'd cooked a lot of pork chops and bacon and stuff, but he'd never actually seen a live pig.
Oh, wow.
And he came up here and he's standing right here, he's watching these things, and he just finally says, I think if I was a pig, this is the way I'd want to live. And that just said it all. That's all you got to say. Just if I was a pig, this is the way I'd like to live. And so this is what we talk about, honoring the pigness of the pig. And the industry does not honor the pigness of the pig. It just simply views the pig, can we grow them faster, fatter, bigger, cheaper, as an inanimate pile of protoplasmic structure to be manipulated however cleverly hubris can imagine to manipulate it. And I suggested a culture that views life from that mechanistic inanimate type of paradigm will view its citizens in the same way. If we want to have a world that honors the Salehness of Selah and the Josiah-ness of Josiah and the Micah-ness of Micah, it starts with honoring the pigness of the pig, the chickenness of the chicken, the tomato-ness of the tomato, as life.
See, they fight over food just like y'all do.
They always eat dessert first.
Just like kids,
Just
if
like
we'd let 'em. If we'd let you.
And they don't wait for them. I've never had a pig say, you know, that was kind of small. Let's all hold back a little bit.
Yeah. It's all for one.
Yeah, man.
I'll keep moving for
One of the things that we've learned from our chefs, because we supply about 50 restaurants, and over the years, consistently, our meats, pork, poultry, beef, it cooks 20% faster than the regular, you know, industrial. And we've thought long and hard, you know, why is that? And we think there are two reasons. One is that the exercise, they're more succulent, so you've got more moisture, which makes the meat steam from the inside. All right.
Gotcha.
So that's a factor. But another factor is that these animals never secrete adrenaline. And in an industrial, in a factory farm, those animals are in such social, natural stress.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. Every day of their life.
It's stressful.
Every day of their life, it's stressful. And so, if every day of your life you were stressful, you know, you get contracted, you get tense, you get bound up. And so we think, and there's not a scientific study, and I can't prove this right now, but we believe that the tissue is actually, much better when the animal is not secreting all that adrenaline all its life. And because ours don't have all that, that's one reason why they cook faster. And then is it too far a stretch to think, well then, if I eat animals that are unstressed, will I be less stressed than if I eat animals that are stressed all the time? You know, you are what you eat, and you are what you eats.
Yep.
That's a very interesting theory. Like maybe you could be absorbing some of the cortisol or whatever the hormones that comes from them being stressed. That's really interesting to think about.
That's absolutely right. I mean, when you consider that what's going on in this world around us is every square yard there are a quadrillion negotiations every nanosecond of relational stuff. You know, I'll trade you some molybdenum for a little bit of that polysaccharide. That's what's going on at the cell level, at the mitochondrial level, and at the atomic level. And we don't think about all of those little negotiations. But as we learn more about the microbiome and the connection between the gut and the brain, and the gut and our emotions, and all those things, we're starting to realize, wow, if you look at the soil as being nothing but nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, a simplistic view to the soil makes a simplistic view to the plants, makes a simplistic animal, which we eat, or the plant or animal. If it's simplistic, then our microbiome is not getting the complexity that it wants. Maybe we've got two bacteria in here that really want a nuance of plantain. Well, you're not going to get that in feedlot beef or in factory chicken. But our animals get all plantain all the time and are going to give your microbiome. So we want that diversity, we want that complexity in our microbiome. And the point is that if all we feed our microbiome is simplicity, then does that translate into simplicity of thought, that we're unable to even think in complex thoughts because all we fed our microbiome is simplicity?
You said these are persimmon trees?
So the pigs can't tear them up. But you could do this with, if you had apple trees or, any kind of fruit or nut trees you wanted to protect. You just put just make a little triangle of pallets around them, and that protects them, until the tree can get enough size on it to take the, take some rubbing.
Did you plant these, or were these volunteer?
These squirrels or birds or whatever, they just came up. They just came up in the pastures. And when we saw them, we, see, there's a real little one right there. But this is how you can kind of work with the pig. It's a partnership. This isn't just hands off. I mean, we view ourselves very much as pigs, how can we help you? And I guess the pigs are asking how they can help us. I don't know, but you know, we're trying to help each other here and create a habitat that allows the habitat to move forward. And I mean, obviously, pigs love persimmons, and so do wildlife. And so if we can protect these from the pigs and get them up and get them bearing, then, you know, the pigs will be able to enjoy those persimmons, you know, down the road.
And guys, I want to point out to you that there were a lot more trees in here. And as Joel was talking about, that they went through and removed trees specifically and intentionally, so that way it can be a healthier area to grow grass and be more supportive of the different animals that are coming through here, like the pigs. And the trees that are here, left here intentionally, that they're able to grow properly and they're able to branch out and not be smothered and to be weaker trees, but to grow and be stronger trees, and just the area to be stronger and healthier as a whole.
So we're a permaculture believer in that we need more forests and fewer trees. And the fact that we spend $4 billion a year on fire in the U.S., we should be, you know, chipping all that and running a carbon economy.
And it's also neat to see how much Joel loves those pigs.
Yeah.
But you know what? He also loves his cows, which I had that chance to see, and that was pretty amazing too, so make sure you stay tuned for that in another video. As well as got to see his layer operation with his chickens, as well as the pond and water systems that he has.
Super
was
cool.
amazing. And I also had a chance to be hands-on with processing ducks there. So you guys are just gonna have to stay tuned for that as well. But while we were here, I had a chance to chat with a number of the stewards here, and that was really enjoyable to being able to do that.
It was super cool, and Gabby was one of those stewards, and she is just like the sweetest, bubbly person, and she even recognized us from our channel, so that was super cool. So here's what Gabby has to say about her experience.
All right, I'm here with Gabby, and Gabby, you've been a steward here as well?
Yep.
So from your experience as being a steward here, what have you learned through this experience?
Well, I came here because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't grow up in like a farming family or anything, so mostly I was just like, well, anything I learn will be something new and good, hopefully. So some of the biggest takeaways I've gotten out of these 3 months so far have been focus on something, so that you're not trying to start too big or expand too quickly, and also be realistic with what you can do, because for me, I want to have turkeys really bad now because I love the turkeys. They're the best thing ever. But realistically, right now, where I live in like a mostly suburban area, like no one's gonna just let me have turkeys in my yard. So I got to start off doing something else before I can kind of rearrange my life so that I can move and do that sort of thing. So I'm gonna start looking more into like market gardening, and I'm interested in farming people's backyards.
Oh, that's great.
Like tons of people need food, and like I think the demand is super there. Just before I came here, passing through the neighborhood, I would see like 5 new raised beds and greenhouses popping up. So I'm like, oh, you might not know what you're doing, but I kind of know how to grow stuff. So I don't know. Those are my biggest takeaways. And then actually the one thing that's probably more important is kind of more personal. It's about like strength and comparison, and that like farming is tough work.
It is.
But no matter what, your progress matters. You're making big changes, and you're doing something very worthwhile for yourself and your community. And just because you don't know something right away, or you're not great at it right away, doesn't mean you're not doing a fantastic job, and that you shouldn't stick with it, because even if the guy next door is doing so much better than you, you can keep improving. And there's no reason to give up, because you're doing this for your own health, for the land, for your community, and that's what really matters.
That's great. So how was it having access to Joel and Daniel and them on a regular basis to learn from? How was it?
It's kind of weird. Before coming here, I I didn't read all the books. I read like half of one book. So I was just like, oh, this is cool, Salatin guy.
Yeah.
Like, all right, but there's such a great wealth of knowledge. Like one of the first weeks here, I watched Daniel do like a calf pulling, and it was like jaws of life, birth, right in front of us, and the technique. It was so amazing, and it's just like these people I have access to all the time and live with and eat with and learn with, and like we're becoming a family here.
That's
so
great.
It's incredible because I'm really appreciative that they like to share their knowledge with all of us, because they don't have to share this with the world and
you're right.
send us out there to become better stewards of the land. And
Yep.
I'm just super grateful because I mean they're normal people and they're a riot to hang out with too,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like what they're doing is so special that it's such a blessing to be able to do this with them.
That is great. Well, I wanted to say, keep encouraged. You can do it, and you may have to, you said, do it in increments and phases, but that's awesome what you're doing. Well, don't you just love Gabby? She is super cute, if I can say that.
She is. She's very cute.
Well, make sure you stay tuned for our upcoming videos. Also, if you want to get some Polyface farm swag like Lacey's hat right here, you can check out the show notes below. Also, if you haven't subscribed to this channel already, make sure you do, and even sign up to receive notifications so that way you can check out these videos that we have coming more from Polyface Farm. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.